So I've been living in Tokyo, Japan for over 6 years. And even though I've been managing and running my business in this city for all that time, I was actually originally trained to become a professional classical musician. And so today I would like to share with you the most important and crucial skill that I've learned from my life as a professional musician, that I continue to use to this day and that has allowed me to grow a successful and thriving business in Tokyo for over 6 years. Now, having 3 decades of experience as a classical musician, I've noticed that many of the challenges that many students and colleagues struggle with are always related to the regularity of practice, the discipline of practice. Let me tell you what I mean. In the world of classical music, regular practice is an absolute must. You're always going to be adding new things to your repertoire, new pieces you've never played before, or even pieces that have just recently been created. And even more than that, you're always going to have to perfect your skills and refine your techniques and your reflexes. And so something that I've always told my students and my colleagues is that playing a musical instrument is basically the complete opposite of riding a bicycle. Let me tell you what I mean. You always hear that saying that goes something like, once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you never really forget it. But playing a musical instrument is the complete opposite of that. Because if you're not always engaged with that bicycle, if you're not constantly pedaling the bicycle, you will eventually forget how to ride it. And in the case of music, this is something that occurs physically. You'll notice that your reflexes become a lot slower, but also intellectually, the way that you transmit your musical ideas also becomes a little bit more calcified and atrophied over time. So in that sense, it's a lot more like going to the gym. If you're not constantly building and rebuilding your body, your muscles, they also become atrophied and you get out of shape over time. And so through my years as a teacher, shaping students of all levels, from very young children to aspiring professionals, I always aimed to teach them the very important skill, the art of delegating their practice. But of course, you're not going to delegate it to someone else. You're not going to go up to your neighbor and say, hey, go ahead and practice for me. You have to learn how to delegate it to yourself. And I'll explain how that works in just 1 second. Maybe some of you might relate to this experience if you've had a lesson of any kind. During the lesson, your teacher is telling you everything you need to do. Put your finger over here, put your hand over there, do it like this, do it a little bit faster, a little bit slower. But before you know it, the lesson is over and you have to go back home, with the expectation that, of course, you have to continue to practice. But once you're home by yourself and it's time to practice, you're a bit lost. You don't know where to start, you don't know how to start, or even worse, you know you should practice, but you end up not doing it anyways. You know what you should be doing, but it's in fact the lazier or the least focused part of you that's in control right now. And so you end up telling yourself that you'll practice twice as hard tomorrow. But of course, I don't have to tell you how that ends up turning out. So right now I'm talking specifically about that situation between a teacher and a student, but the truth is that it doesn't apply only to that. It applies to basically any field and any situation. How many times have you been at home or in your office and you say, okay, now it's time to work, and you sit in front of your computer, but then half an hour later you realize you've been waffling on the computer, answering emails or doing things you didn't even intend on doing, or you start cleaning your desk and doing other chores that were not even part of your plan. So that's actually where the skill of delegating comes into play. But like I said before, you're not delegating these things to other people, you're delegating those responsibilities to yourself. I always told my students that you have to learn how to divide yourself in 2 different aspects. In my case, there's always Gabriel the teacher and Gabriel the student. And so you have to be able to decide who is the one that's in control, so that even when you're alone, the teacher is the one who gives the command and the student is the one who listens, obeys, and finishes the task. So when you, the teacher, tells yourself, the student, that now it's time to go practice, then you go ahead and you practice and you treat yourself like your teacher would. You continue telling yourself, no, you should do it this way, no, do it that way, put your finger here, put your hand over there, do it faster, do it slower. And surprisingly, that's a skill that works remarkably well, even with people that have relatively no experience. Of course, you can argue that those that have more experience understand the gravity of the situation, the importance of the situation a lot better. And so it also works a lot better. And that's why it's a skill that I continue to use to this day, not only in my performances, because I continue to perform as a musician, but also in the daily aspects and operations of my business. Because when you do this, you're actually removing the option of doing or not doing. And so you're turning it from a choice into an obligation. Think about it, many of us are actually better at following instructions. If you take once again the example of a classical musician, when you're in an orchestra following the directions of the conductor, or even as a soloist, if you're following the score, following the recipe to be able to play the piece correctly, you are following the instructions. And so you have to bring out that aspect of yourself and give the instructions. Give them the clear instructions that need to be followed. I need you to go answer those emails now. I need you to go send the invoices right now. Give yourself the instruction and delegate the responsibility to that part of yourself, and don't just simply rely on the fact that you're sure you can remember to do it by the end of the day. Once again, this removes from that aspect of you the option of doing or not doing, and other factors like you're too tired, it's too cold, you're too hot, you don't like the weather, you don't feel like doing it. Because, again, think about it. How many entrepreneurs or business owners out there talk about how you're your own employee, but then very few of them actually follow through with it. And many of them actually use it as an excuse to not stand by their responsibilities. So don't be one of those people. So that's one of the most important skills that, even though it might sound simple at first, if you know how to use it properly, it can become extremely powerful. And I think it's one of the things that has allowed us to turn our business into a 6-figure business in Tokyo, and that allows us to continue to grow it over time. The fact that you can treat yourself like the boss and like the employee, and you know how to listen to the boss at the right time and follow the instructions like an employee at the right time. So keep this in mind and use your ability to delegate in your favor to dictate the kind of life you want in your professional and personal endeavors. And if you want to learn more about life in Japan as an entrepreneur, then make sure you watch this video right here. And in the meantime, take care, and I'll see you next time.